Welcome back to the Emerald Corner. Today, it's time for some real talk. In this episode, we're going to be talking about how to know when it's time to fire a client. Hey guys, welcome back to the Emerald Corner. Today's episode is another episode of let's get real about business, okay? There's not a lot of people out there who are willing to have the difficult conversations when it comes to your business. So I'm here to be that confidant, to be that person, to have the tough conversations with you. So today we are going to be digging into how to know when it's time to fire a client. Now, obviously, this is going to be different for everybody, but let's kind of go into a few situations that might apply to you that you can use to analyze your clients and figure out if any of them are on the way out or at least need to have a discussion, right? So let's talk about how do you know if you should fire a client? Okay. Couple things to consider. In my opinion, you want to think about how much they're paying you. You want to think about what jobs you're doing for them. And you want to think about how well do you get along with and like this person? Okay, those are the three things that I consider. So, first and foremost, how are they paying you? So, let's say that they're paying you hourly. Okay, let's say that they are being billed at $100 an hour. If they're being billed at $100 an hour and the job takes 2 hours, then we're going to go ahead and break that in half, right? So, it's $50 an hour. Now, the trick is that you have to pay someone else to do this job, right? So you pay someone $25 an hour to do the job. So now you're making $25 an hour. So given your other expenses, so other overhead expenses, so maybe you have rent to pay, maybe you have utilities, maybe you have phone, maybe you have subscriptions or software, insurance, whatever other things you have to cover, what is going to be the kind of average cost? So does that hourly rate for overhead plus your salary plus any taxes that you might need to pay, does that equal $25 an hour? If not, then we have to figure out how we're going to solve that, right? So obviously there is an option to increase their prices, but let's say that you need to increase their prices by $25 an hour. And so for somebody who has a little job that only is 2 hours, that price increase may not feel substantial. But if they're paying you $2,000, $3,000 a month, then a 25% increase might feel substantial. So that's something that you'll have to consider in this process as well, right? Is do you want to kind of meet in the middle and maybe do a smaller increase this time and then do another one a little bit further down the road? Is it just not worth it to you and you should let this client go? All that stuff, right? And of course, part of this is also, are they good at paying you? So do they regularly pay you on time? That's great, right? That's something to keep in mind. Or are you constantly having to chase them? Are they constantly fighting you on payments or saying that they're going to make payments and then they don't? Or they make payments and then they return? All of this good stuff, things that we have to face on a regular basis as business owners. So are they good at making their payments? That's another thing that you'll keep in mind, right? And number two, as we talked about, was the services that you provide to them. So are you providing services that you still enjoy providing? And obviously, if you're not doing the work, it may not be as big of a concern to think about this particular question. But if you are, or if your employees are very unhappy performing that particular service, then you may not want to continue doing it. I mean, the truth of the matter is that businesses change and we go through cycles, and sometimes we do a service and then, a couple of years later, we're like, I'm not interested in doing that service anymore. It happens. There's nothing wrong with that. It's okay for you to say, I'm sorry, we're not completing this service anymore. So we have to let you go. That could happen. Now, if you're like, no, actually, everything we do for them is great, then okay, check that box off. You're good to go, right? And then the last one, of course, is the big one in my head. So we've got money, which is a big one, but then this one I think is even more important because if you're making less money and you really like the people that you're working for, then you're a lot more flexible. It's just a fact of life, right? Now, obviously, your business, you still need to make money. You still need to make sure that you're profitable. So you have to draw a line somewhere. But if you like the people, you're going to be more willing to be flexible, especially when you're increasing. If they come back and they're like 25% is a lot, can we do like 20? Then you might be more willing to say, okay, sure, I can do that. Now, if you don't like them, then might be a good time for you to let that client go. Now, that doesn't mean that there's something wrong with them. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. But just like not everyone's going to like you, you're not going to like everyone. And you can do as much vetting as you want to on the front end of things, but there are still going to be people who slip through the cracks and you think they're going to be good to work with, and then you find out that they're not, and that you can't stand them, or that they don't take it seriously enough, or they don't do the things that you need them to do so that you can do your job. There's a lot of things that could go into it, but if you don't get along with this person for whatever reason, it's really not worth the money. Now, another caveat is if you're kind of like, meh, I don't mind them, I don't love them, don't really hate them, but I'm not making enough money on them, then this is an opportunity for you to say, either I'm going to let them go or I'm going to dramatically increase their prices, because then either you don't have to do their work anymore and you're like, great, now I've freed up time in my space to do someone else's work that I enjoy working with better. Or two, then you feel a lot better about the work because they're paying you a lot more. Everybody is a lot more flexible when they're being paid a lot more. They're like, that's not something I would normally do, but you pay me so much money that I'm happy to do it. I mean, you wouldn't probably say that to the client, but it is something that most business owners have considered at one time or another, right? Is you kind of take those pain in the butt clients and you increase their pricing kind of substantially. And if they decide to stay with you, then you're like, well, I guess that makes it worth it. This doesn't work if you hate the client, though. Like if you can't stand working with this person, you guys just don't get along. They, don't give you what you need to do the job, whatever it is, you will never feel good enough, no matter how much money they're paying you to continue doing that. So if you just don't get along with someone and you can't stand them, your team doesn't like them, then I say it's time to let that client go. There's someone else out there who does what you do that person is going to mesh with so well, and you hanging on to them is taking an opportunity away from that person. So why make yourself miserable when you can bless someone else? Well, I know this episode's been a little bit different, but if you like these Real Talk episodes, will you please let me know in the comments below, and I will make sure to fit a few more of them in my schedule as we go through each month. Thank you so much for spending a few minutes of your time with me today. I hope that you have a fantastic day, and I will see you in my next video.